Friends, the first port is Nassau. The Atlantic delivered them. The Bahamas are warm and the market is full. And somewhere in the straw market right now, there is a white Stetson hat that is being held for ransom. 3 days out of Miami, Table 7 has already been around the whole ship, survived a midnight buffet Olympics, and handed out dinner rolls as gold medals at 2 in the morning. This morning, the Via Oceanus is at anchor in Nassau Harbor, and the Bahamas are warm and impossibly blue outside every porthole. First port, first morning ashore, and Buck Calhoun has been awake since 5:30 talking to his hat. At breakfast that morning, the dining room had the particular energy of a ship that has arrived somewhere. People were in their port clothes. Bags sat under tables. Marco Bellini was already at the gangway with a clipboard and a fluorescent good morning. At table 7, Buck Calhoun had his hat on, which was not unusual. He had his hat on in the dining room, in the hallways, in the spa lobby on day 2 when a leaner had very politely suggested that indoor etiquette might differ. He had always had his hat on. The hat was not a hat. It was a weather system.
I want to tell you all something about this hat.
Please don't.
I got this hat at the Lubbock Livestock Show, January 1973. Paid $62 for it, which at that time was what a man paid for a perfectly good truck. I have worn it every day since. It has been in 3 states, 2 countries, 4 weddings, one of which was my own, and 1 incident involving a goat named Gerald that I will not discuss at breakfast.
What happened with the goat?
I said I won't discuss it at breakfast. The hat survived. That's the relevant point.
Loretta Calhoun sipped her coffee and said nothing. She had heard the hat story 600 times over 42 years of marriage. She knew every version. She also knew something Buck did not. That last night, over a quiet nightcap in the crow's nest, she had proposed something to Sal DeLucas, and Sal DeLucas had said, "Loretta, I have been waiting 11 years to do something like this," and they had shaken hands.
Buck, what makes it lucky, exactly?
Nothing bad has ever happened to me while I was wearing it.
What about the goat?
The hat survived, Sal. I established that.
Loretta met Sal's eyes across the table. Sal met Dorothy's. Dorothy met Alina's. And Alina, who had been a school librarian for 35 years and was very good at keeping secrets, simply buttered her toast and looked out at the Nassau harbor as though she had no thoughts at all. Nassau in January is the color of a postcard that actually came true. The harbor ran from turquoise to deep blue depending on where you stood. The streets behind it, pink stucco and yellow facades and old British colonial everything, were full of the particular busy energy of a cruise port on a Tuesday morning. The whole company came ashore together, which was not always a given, but which happened today by unanimous agreement, possibly because the weather was perfect, and possibly because 11 of the 12 of them had a prior arrangement. Buck was immediately the most visible person in Nassau.
Buck, I love you like a brother, but the hat is creating a traffic situation.
Charles, this hat has never caused a traffic situation in its life. It has calmed situations. It has resolved situations. On 3 separate occasions, it has served as a visual landmark in a crowded area. It is a public service.
On Bay Street, a vendor caught Buck's eye with a display of straw hats, wide-brimmed, woven, beautiful local work. He held one out with a grin and a price. Buck looked at it with genuine respect.
Sir, that is a fine hat. A fine, fine hat. I am not in the market, but I want you to know I recognize quality.
Sir, for the beach, no. Very light, very cool.
I appreciate it. I have a hat. But I deeply respect that hat.
Loretta had fallen back half a block. She was walking with Dorothy, which looked casual, which was not casual. Dorothy had a notepad she'd borrowed from Walter and was writing something in her very neat handwriting. Sal was walking with Marco Bellini 3 steps behind, and Marco had the look of a man who had been briefed and was thrilled.
How many terms, Loretta?
3. 1 performance. 1 confession. 1 declaration.
The declaration is going to be the hard one.
I know. That's why it's 3rd.
Marco tapped Loretta's shoulder with a clipboard. I have located a suitable child. He has agreed to deliver the notes for $10 and a poolside lunch. He drives a hard bargain. I respect it. Loretta considered this. Does he know what's in the notes? Marco smiled. He cannot read English. He is 6. He is perfect. By mid-morning, they were at Cable Beach, a long arc of pale sand with the Atlantic running in warm and shallow, and so clear you could see the bottom 20 feet out. The group claimed a cluster of cabanas, and the debate about sunscreen and hat etiquette began immediately, as it always did when the Washingtons and the Whitfields were in the same place at the same time.
Walter, there is a UV index chart on the app I showed you.
I've read it. I've also calculated that at our latitude in January, peak UV arrives approximately 43 minutes after 10 a.m. We have a buffer.
He's been up since 5, calculating the buffer.
The buffer is important, Alina.
Buck, who had not calculated anything and was not going to, walked directly to the water. Before he went, he took the Stetson off his head, which he almost never did, and set it carefully on a low post at the edge of the cabana awning. He patted it once. He said something to it that nobody else could hear, and then he walked into the Atlantic up to his knees and stood there with his arms out and his face to the sun. Loretta watched him for a long moment. Then she looked at Sal. Sal looked at Dorothy. Dorothy looked at her notepad. And in the next 45 seconds, while Buck was explaining something to the Atlantic, the white Stetson quietly left the post and passed under a beach towel and into a tote bag and into Marco Bellini's custody. Marco nodded to a small boy named Emmanuel, age 6, who was eating a mango with the patience of a professional. Marco gave him a folded note. Emmanuel gave him a look that suggested he understood the assignment. He walked toward the water and sat down to wait.
This is either the most organized thing I've ever seen, or it's going to go very wrong.
The universe is watching. I can feel it.
The universe is watching a 6-year-old hold a ransom note.
Yes, the universe finds it charming.
Buck came back from the water in about 10 minutes, cheerful and completely unaware. He reached for the post where his hat was not. The thing about Buck Calhoun and his hat was that his hand went to it before his brain did. He reached for the brim as he came up out of the water, the old reflex, the same gesture 40 years in, and caught empty air. He stopped, looked at his hand, looked at the post. This was the quiet before the Texas.
Loretta!
What?
Where is my hat?
I don't know. Wasn't it on the post?
What followed was a search. Buck conducted it with the systematic thoroughness of a man who had lost something precious and could not process the loss as real. He checked the post 3 times. He checked under every chair within 12 feet. He asked Dorothy if she'd seen it, and Dorothy said, with the particular warmth of a woman who was lying through her teeth for a good cause, that she had not been paying attention.
Friends, my hat is not here.
I haven't seen it. I can assist with a search grid if you'd like to approach this systematically.
Walter, I appreciate that. I do. I need you to know the hat has been everywhere I've been since 1973, and it has never once gone anywhere on its own.
Perhaps someone picked it up by mistake.
Oh, honey, nobody picks up a white Stetson by mistake. It's not a mistake hat. That hat is a choice.
Marco Bellini appeared at Buck's shoulder with a clipboard and an expression of professional concern. Mr. Calhoun, I have spoken to the Cabana staff. No hat has been reported found. He consulted his clipboard. Also, this child is looking for you. Emmanuel, 6 years old, holding his mango in one hand and a folded piece of paper in the other, walked up to Buck and held out the note with the pure neutrality of someone conducting business.
We have the hat. Terms are 3. First term to follow.
A silence.
This is extortion.
Buck, they say terms. That's very organized for extortion.
The second note arrived 11 minutes later, delivered by Emmanuel with the same economy of expression as the first. He collected his mango, he approached Buck, he presented the note. He had clearly decided this was simply his job now.
Term 1. To receive your hat, you must sing 1 verse of a Texas song in the middle of Bay Street, loud enough for the street to hear. You may not explain why.
A silence.
They want me to sing in the street.
Buck, if you want the hat back...
I did not say I wasn't going to do it. I said they want me to sing in the street.
They walked back to Bay Street. Buck squared his shoulders, which was something he did when he had decided to meet a situation rather than discuss it. He stood in the middle of the sidewalk, took off his imaginary hat, because his real hat was unavailable, and he sang. He sang the song his father had taught him, the one his grandmother had played on the piano in the front room of a house outside of Odessa, Texas, that was torn down in 1981. He sang it full and without apology, and with a voice that had no business being as good as it was for a man who claimed he never sang. The Bay Street vendors stopped. A few tourists turned. A Bahamian woman at a fruit cart looked at him for a long moment and then started swaying gently because that was the only reasonable response. A small round of applause started and kept going.
Thank you, Nassau. I am Buck Calhoun of Lubbock, Texas. I don't usually do this.
Gus Lindquist, who had been watching with his arms folded and the expression of a man who witnessed things, said the thing he said.
Not bad.
Coming from Gus, this was a standing ovation. Emmanuel was already there with the third note. The child was beginning to feel like a Greek chorus, a very small, mango-fueled Greek chorus. The third note. Buck read it aloud for the group, which was by now gathering around him in the way of people who are watching a spectacle that they are responsible for, but are enjoying too much to stop.
Term 2. Approach any stranger and say the following, word for word. I told my wife I liked her mother's cooking for 30 years, and I did not.
A longer silence than the first one.
Loretta. Her mother made a pot roast every Sunday that could have been used in construction. I ate it for 30 years.
Buck, nobody told you to.
I know nobody told me to. I told me to. And I am now being asked to tell a stranger.
At the straw market, there was a man on a bench. He was perhaps 70. He wore a white shirt and had his hat on his knee and was eating a conch fritter with the calm of a man who had nowhere else to be. Buck walked up to him. He sat down. The man looked at him. Buck looked at him.
Sir, I need to tell you something. I told my wife I liked her mother's cooking for 30 years. I did not. The pot roast in particular was a genuine ordeal. I'm sorry I never said so.
My friend, my wife's mother made something she called conch chowder for 15 years. I ate it every time. I told her it was wonderful. It was not wonderful, but I would eat it again tomorrow if she asked.
Yeah.
We love them, so we eat the chowder.
Buck sat with him for a moment. Neither of them said anything. Then Buck stood, thanked the man, and rejoined the group with a slightly dazed expression of someone who went in looking for a hat and came out with something else. Gus Lindquist fell into step beside him. He did this quietly without announcement, the way Gus did everything.
I had a cap once. International Harvester, 1972.
What happened to it?
Dorothy threw it out. By accident. Drove 40 miles back for it.
Did you get it?
Yep.
Did you tell her?
Nope.
Good man.
Emmanuel arrived with the fourth note at the entrance to the straw market. He had finished his mango. He held his hand out for another one. Marco gave him a Bahamian dollar, which was the equivalent, and Emmanuel found a new mango from somewhere with the efficiency of a man running a tight operation.
Term 3. Say to Loretta, out loud, in front of everyone, Loretta has always been right, has always been right, and I have spent considerable energy over 42 years pretending otherwise.
Buck lowered the note. He looked at it. He looked at the group. He looked at where Loretta was standing. Loretta was not there.
Buck turned around.
Buck turned around, and coming through the entrance of the straw market, wearing his white Stetson at a slight angle that was somehow exactly right, was Loretta Calhoun. She had the hat. She had always had the hat. She walked toward him with the particular stride of a woman who has waited 42 years for this specific moment, and who intends to arrive at it with full ceremony. Behind her sat DeLucas, Dorothy Lindquist, Marco, who was recording on his tablet. The whole company assembled, some of them barely able to breathe.
Well.
The term, Buck.
I see you found the hat.
The term.
Buck Calhoun looked at his wife. He looked at her wearing his hat. He had the expression of a man who has been completely outmaneuvered and knows it, and has decided that the correct response to this is grace.
Loretta Calhoun has always been right. Has always been right. I have spent considerable energy, a very large amount of energy, over 42 years, pretending otherwise. And I would do every minute of it again.
That last part wasn't in the note.
It wasn't in the note. It was free of charge.
Loretta lifted the hat off her head and set it on Buck's with both hands. Slowly, deliberately, with the gravity of a coronation. The hat settled. It sat at the angle it always sat at, the angle it had held since Lubbock, 1973. Buck reached up and touched the brim.
Don't you forget it.
I want it on record. This was the most organized thing any of you have ever done. This was a genuinely professional operation. I want names, and I want accountability.
I coordinated the notes.
I wrote them. I have very neat handwriting.
I managed the child.
And the child?
Emmanuel has returned to his family and is having lunch as agreed. He was extremely professional.
Buck. To be clear, the whole group knew.
The whole group knew?
I've known since breakfast. I kept it for 6 hours. That is the longest secret I've kept since 1987.
I was briefed at the gangway. I want to note that I considered the search grid offered genuinely.
I was briefed the night before.
Earl, you knew before me?
Loretta asked me. I can keep a secret.
Earl Washington. You kept a secret from me for 18 hours on a ship.
17 and a half.
42 years.
42 years.
I want you all to know, I will have 11 more ports. I have time. I am patient. I am creative. And I have very warm feelings for every one of you that will not prevent me from using them.
Is that a threat?
Dorothy, honey, it is a promise.
The afternoon opened up the way Nassau afternoons do, warm and unhurried, full of color and the particular sound of a port city that has been welcoming people for 300 years and is very good at it. The company spread out across the harbor area in the loose way of people who have already had their main event for the day and are now simply being somewhere nice. Dorothy found a local bakery and came out with a bag of coconut bread and the conviction that the recipe could be adapted for Minnesota winters. Daisy found a stand where a woman was weaving a straw hat, sat down, and watched her for 20 minutes without speaking. The woman showed her how to start the weave. Daisy showed her a turquoise ring. They communicated fine.
Daisy, she doesn't speak English.
She speaks hands.
Walter found a bookstore, one of those perfect small ones that exist in port cities, dark and slightly damp and full of things you didn't know you needed. He came out with a 1964 field guide to Caribbean marine currents and the satisfied expression of a man who had completed his day.
Walter, we're on a cruise. You found a marine currents field guide.
Alina, it has a chapter on lateral drift in shallow Caribbean waters. It directly applies to my shuffleboard correction.
Of course it does.
At the harbor front, Earl Washington sat with Buck on a low wall looking at the boats. They didn't say much. Earl had the shuffleboard cue under one arm because he'd brought it ashore, which nobody asked about but everyone had noticed.
You sang well.
I didn't know I could still do that.
You always could. You just don't usually have a reason.
Earl, did Loretta tell you what the terms were going to be? Before?
She told me one of them was something you might not do.
Which one did she think I might not do?
The third one.
She underestimated me.
She also overestimated her own poker face. You will note she was not in the room when you read term 3.
She left.
She left.
Because she didn't know if I would do it.
That's my read.
Buck sat with that for a moment. The harbor sparkled. A pelican landed on a post 12 feet away with the confidence of a bird that owned the harbor, which it essentially did.
Well, I did it.
You did.
By early evening, the harbor front was all warm light, and the sound of distant music and the smell of the sea mixing with whatever was on the grill somewhere close. They found a place, low tables, open to the harbor air, a ceiling fan that turned slowly and didn't do much but meant well, and they ate. Conch fritters, grouper sandwiches, something with plantains that Sal declared structurally interesting. Bahamian macaroni and cheese, which was not what Walter had expected and was considerably better. Dorothy had a second bread roll and did not apologize for it. The table was full and the harbor was gold, and the day had been, by any measure, one of the better ones.
The grouper. Simple prep, very fresh. You can't argue with fresh.
You argue with everything else.
I don't argue. I observe. There's a difference.
In 32 years, I have not identified it.
Loretta, can I ask, when did you come up with it?
2 years ago. I've been waiting for a ship.
A beat.
You planned this before the cruise?
I had the general architecture. The details required the right port.
Architecture. She had an architecture.
The straw market was ideal. Wide sight lines, multiple exit routes, a child available for hire.
Loretta, that is honestly beautiful.
Marco Bellini, who had lingered at the edge of the table the way cruise directors do when they've done something they're proud of, produced a single formal note from his jacket. He set it on the table in front of Buck.
On behalf of Via Oceanus Entertainment, Mr. Calhoun, the official event record, I've titled it The Nassau Hat Incident, a study in trust and pot roast.
Marco, this is a very thorough document.
I do thorough.
I want to make a toast to my wife, who has been right for 42 years and finally proved it in front of witnesses in the Bahamas. To the group, who held the secret for 17 and a half hours without cracking. To Emmanuel, who should go into business. And to Nassau, which is a genuinely fine place to have the worst morning and the best afternoon of a cruise.
The Via Oceanus pulled away from Nassau Harbor as the last of the evening light went gold, and then orange, and then the particular deep blue that belongs to the hour just after sunset over warm water. The group had come back aboard together, as they nearly always did now, without discussion, in the way of people who have quietly stopped being strangers. On the promenade deck, they gathered at the railing to watch Nassau recede. The lights of the harbor came on one by one. The water behind them was still turquoise even in the dark, lit by what was underneath.
Is that the same bioluminescence from Night 1?
The ocean remembers.
Daisy.
The ocean does remember, Chuck. It's just water and light, but it's also not just water and light.
No, I guess it isn't.
Ruby Me started humming. She always did, eventually. This time it was something slow and warm and without a name, the kind of melody that sounds like it already existed and you just finally heard it. Earl put his arm around her. She leaned in. 52 years. Walter was writing in his notepad. Lateral drift, corrections for Second Caribbean port. Elena watched him for a moment, then she put her hand over the page.
Walter, look at Nassau.
I'm looking, I'm also noting.
Just look.
He put the notepad down. He looked at Nassau. And something in Walter Whitfield's face did a thing it didn't usually do, went quiet, went still, went the particular way of a man who has spent 80 years measuring things and has suddenly noticed that the most important ones don't have numbers.
Hey.
Hey.
Good day.
Decent day.
The best day.
Yes. The best day.
Nassau was aglow on the horizon now. In 2 days, the ship would reach Puerto Rico, and at Table 7, the planning, if it could be called planning, had already begun. The morning after Nassau had the quality of all mornings after something good, a gentleness, a fullness that hadn't quite worn off yet, like the warmth that stays in a room after good company has left. The Via Oceanus was back in open water. The Atlantic was deep blue and running in low, easy swells, and the dining room was bright. Antonio was at Table 7 when they arrived, with the calm, unhurried attention he brought to every morning. He said nothing about Nassau. He didn't have to. He had heard about the hat, things traveled on ships, and his expression when he poured Buck's coffee was the expression of a man who was deeply satisfied on someone else's behalf.
Good morning, Table 7. I trust Nassau was everything it should be.
Antonio. Nassau was a revelation. I sang in the street. I confessed to a stranger. I said words I have never said out loud in 42 years of marriage.
And the hat?
The hat is on my head where it belongs. It was never in danger. Although for a period of approximately 2 hours, I did not know that.
Reggie Ockhaffer appeared at the table unusual for breakfast, which was not his shift, but he had heard things. He had a small folded note.
Mr. Calhoun from the bar staff, we heard about the Nassau operation. We want you to know we have tremendous respect for Mrs. Calhoun.
Reggie, the whole ship knows.
The whole ship, sir. Marco filed a report. It went to cruise operations at 9 last night. I believe the captain read it.
The captain read it.
He reportedly laughed for 30 seconds. That is, I'm told, a record.
After breakfast, when the table had thinned and the Atlantic was bright and wide and the next port was still 2 days away, Buck sat for a moment by the window. He had his coffee. He had his hat. He watched the sea go by, the endlessly patient, endlessly indifferent, endlessly beautiful sea, and he was somewhere between content and grateful, which is the best place to be at any age on any morning. Loretta came back from the buffet with a plate and sat down.
You're thinking.
Just watching the water.
You're thinking about what you're going to do in Puerto Rico.
I am doing nothing of the kind.
Buck.
Loretta, I have no idea what you're talking about. Now eat your breakfast.
Next time aboard the Via Oceanus, the ship makes its first Caribbean island stop, and someone at Table 7 has had something in their luggage since Miami that was never entirely declared. Sal DeLucas, a customs official he'd rather not remember, and a memory from 30 years ago that is very much about to arrive at the table and demand to be dealt with. Don't miss it. Thank you so much for sailing with us. If Buck's Day made you smile, give this one a like, subscribe so you're at the dock for the next port, and share it with a friend who'd hide a hat for you. And tell us in the comments, what would you have demanded as the third term? See you in the next port. You've been at Table 7 aboard the Via Oceanus, where a stolen hat required a performance, a confession, and 42 years of truth all before dinner. The hat is safe. Loretta is satisfied, and somewhere out there, Emmanuel is enjoying a very good lunch. Fair winds. We'll see you at sea. Thank you for sailing these miles of our cruise, along with our characters. See you in the next port. To be continued.